A short video on how to replace these tread sill plates on the Jaguar F-Type. I've already done one side, and this is to put the illuminated tread plates in, but it was such a pain on the other side that I thought it would be useful if I shared my pain, so somebody hopefully can do it a lot quicker next time round. It took me about 4 hours yesterday to do just one side. So if I go around the other side of the car, you'll see the difference. So these are the illuminated tread plates. Basically the bit with Jaguar written in it lines up. Now, to replace the tread plates themselves, it's not that hard a job. All you have to do is take off the old silver trim, and then there's 4 bolts that hold this piece of trim down, and you just lift it away and it's done. The problem with the illuminated tread plates is the cable connector for it is actually sat up here underneath the sports pack sills. Now that's where my problems came in, because you have to effectively get the whole of the sill off in order to access that and run the cable up to the front. And that's where a lot of the pain is, because most of the instructions that you get relate to the standard sills. Now there isn't too much difference between the two types, but enough to make it hard going. I also had the additional problem in that I bought my tread plates off eBay, and they didn't come with these wiring cables, which means I've had to make up my own. So that's why it took so long yesterday. Hopefully this side won't be too much of a pain, but there are some notable differences between the plates, or rather should I say the sills. So if you have these sports side sills, there are 2 problems that I found taking them off. They're very similar to the instructions, but the 2 problems relate to, one, there was a tie behind here which caused me a whole load of problems. So plastic tie that held the bumper onto the plate behind. There's also, and I don't know whether you'll be able to see this, but if I go under the car, there is here a splash guard, which all I could see on the other side, and it looks very similar here, is that is pop riveted on, and that actually holds it onto the car. Now that isn't too much of a problem, because the main bit is getting the front off, and once you've got that off, you've got access to the wiring. However, you have to be really careful, because you'll notice here, pulling that outwards pushes it up into the door. So I've ended up with a slight scratch on here, which I'm going to try and avoid on this side. But you can get it out. It's a lot of force and a lot of twisting, but it will come out. As I say, the problem is, it's tied on up here at the back, and obviously riveted underneath. So that makes the back bit doesn't actually come off. Anyway, so the first bit of the job is to get off this. And there is no easy way to do it. I've said people have said on forums that it comes off quite easy. It didn't yesterday. It took a lot of force. You basically need to get something underneath and prise it off along the strip, and then lift it up. So I'll start with that first, and come back to you once I've got that off. So, one trim plate removed. As you can see, I got in under one end, but it has somewhat distorted it, and there is, to be honest, no easy way of getting this thing off. If you look on the back, you can see the adhesive tape that runs along the back, and although it's only double-sided sticky tape, it does stick, and you have to get in underneath the edges, which is why you end up with that level of distortion, because there isn't much room along the sills here to get things in underneath to prise far enough along not to distort it. It will probably knock back out if you really wanted to get them off and refurb them, or I've heard somebody talking about carbon fibre wrapping them, so you can probably knock that back into shape, but it's not an easy job to get off. So coming back to what's next, so next is really easy. It's just these 4 Torx 30 bolts that sit along here, getting those off, and this plastic trim lifts out and comes out quite easy. So that's the next bit. So that was a quick one. Those Torx bolts are now removed, so literally it is quite an easy job. Just finger under here and off, as easy as that. And that is really all you need to do to replace the tread plates, is take those two off. Both of those bits I've taken off, by the way, according to the instructions, in the bin, so you don't need them for the next steps. Now that's the easy bit. Now comes the hard bit, which is getting this off. So the first thing that you have to do is take out the rubber seal that goes round, and then take out the plastic bit that sits behind. And really, although the instruction says you only need to unscrew the bottom bit here, I'd take the whole thing out. It makes life just a bit easier that you're not completely faffing around trying to keep it out of the way all the time. Now, the other thing I will say is this, the rubber strip, is only held on with some plastic trim fasteners. The problem with those is they can break, which means you need to be really careful, especially when you get down to the bottom bit here. There's a load of blue trim bits which come off really easy up at the top bit. It's when you get down to the bottom bit, this has got some white hard plastic trim clips, and on the other side I snapped a couple of those. It's better to take the rubber sealant off rather than try and pull the trim clips out. Once you've got the rubber seal off, you can then get the trim clips out with a pair of pliers, and that's probably the best way to go. Bit of advice there. Right, we'll get on with taking these two bits off, and then I'll come back to you again. Alright. So we now have the plastic side strip taken off. There's 4 Torx 25 bolts that go in around the top bit, and then on the bottom bit, if you can see, they are these like plastic rivet things, so they screw out, and that allows the trim piece to come away. The next job, to get the side skirts off. Oh, and by the way, I should mention out my favourite bit from yesterday is these trim clips here are the ones that I've left in, so I've just unhooked the seal. But when you're putting it back on, you need to try and get those out, because it makes life a lot easier rather than trying to loop the trim around it. And I did mislead you, there are a couple at the top as well of that plastic trim bit that the seal goes onto. The seal itself, funnily enough, on this side, I don't know whether it's significant or not, but this has got little pink rivets into it, whereas the other side had blue. Don't know why there's a difference, but there is. But those ones, as you can see, they stay in, they just come away quite easily. It's the white ones that don't, it's the white ones that break. And luckily today I've managed to get it off without breaking any of the little things. Right, now next bit is to get the main bolts that hold it on together, and they come in 2 forms. So you can see up here there are a couple, and then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's the bit that's different to the instructions, because the instructions only talk about these 5. There are 2 more here that you need to be aware of and get those out as well. Now, if we go under the car, just like those little plastic rivets, and I don't know whether you'll be able to see this, let me see if I can, there we go, there's one. These are Phillips screws, and you need to unscrew all of those until they're just about fully out, and then the things just drop out. Really easy, but there's 8 of those that need to come out. Right. This bit will take longer, so I think I may get a cup of tea and then come back to this bit. Alright, cheers. Cup of tea later and lots of swearing. Doesn't look much different, but those bolts are now out all the way along here, and I've also removed them from underneath, and they are these little plastic things which are basically like rivets. They screw up in and push this out, which is what holds them in. However, getting these out, mostly what I've found is the ones in the middle tend to come out relatively easily. It's the ones at the end on the underneath that cause lots of the problems. So if you have some trim removal tools like one of these, it's great for getting in there and pulling the things out even when they won't screw out. And that's really the only way you'll get them out without having to drill them out. I've kind of found that they can be reusable. I'd get a couple of spares from the Jaguar dealer if I could, just to replace the ones that are awkward to come out. Right, there's one bit I forgot to tell, which is why I've not got the bumper off yet. Sorry, not the bumper, the skirt, is if you look round the back here in the wheel arch, there are a couple of torque bolts on the back which need to come out. They're Torx 30 again, bit tricky with the wheel on, but they're not screwed in that tightly, so they should come out easy. There is also, on these sports pack skirts, there is also one in there. I don't know if you can see that one right in there. That actually doesn't hold the skirt on, it holds the bit of plastic weatherproofing shielding in place, so you don't need to worry about the one at the front, it's just the two at the back. And once you've got those two at the back off, what you'll find is along the seals, both front and back, there's like a clipping mechanism in there, which you just need to release off. It's kind of that, if you know what I mean. You can start to see it there already. But I won't be able to show you me doing that because it needs both hands and a lot of brute force to pull it off. And as I say, on the other side, I found that there was a plastic clip on the back which holds the side skirt in place with the trim clip, which meant I wasn't able to get the back off, which made, as I say, that bit round the door quite tricky, but we'll come to that. So I'll take these two Torx bolts out at the wheel and pull it off and come back to you. Okay, so we're back. We have pulled out the back bits. I'm not sure if you can see, but right in at the back there, that's that little tab there that I was talking about that's actually held on by a clip, which you can cut, and I dare say could replace quite easy, but my problem is that it's still riveted on the underside, so I never bothered yesterday. And so you can see we've pulled it away. Now for the illuminated tread plate, this hole here is where the wire comes up through, so it comes up through there, comes out through the sill, and the connector's down here. I'll show you more of that once I've got the plate off. But back to my point yesterday where I scratched it and wasn't best pleased. You can already see up here in the corner how it's pushed up against the door frame, even with the door opened as wide as it will go. So that is a bit of a challenge, really. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get a piece of fabric in between the two there and see if that helps today. Coming back to the front here, you can see that it's now unclipped along here, and really all it is now is just to pull this bit off. As I say, close the door and give it some more gap, and then try and get that bit out, and hopefully we'll be on next time. I've got the camera on, you'll be able to see it with the side skirt hanging off. Getting there though, and going a lot quicker than yesterday. Oh, one other thing. I have also, off the side sill along the bottom, taken out the clips. So they're now back in the rubber seal. So these are the white ones here along the rubber seal. I recommend doing that because it makes it a damn sight easier putting the thing on than it would be otherwise trying to hook the rubber around the clips on the side skirt. So back we'll go, and hopefully back again with you soon. So there we go, pulled off. Quite a lot easier. I got the fabric in between. Close the door as much as you can. It does give it more of a gap, and I managed to get this side off without scratching it. I say scratch yesterday. I'll be honest. It was a minor thing, and you'll never see it because it's right in the corner. But frustrating nonetheless. I'll know it's there. As you can see, the back is still attached. So it's not come all the way off, but you don't need it, because all you're worried about is, if I come up here, is this is the plug that you plug your tread plates into. Cable runs along with this one,
and disappears in the hole in there and pops out here. It's quite an easy job, really. What I'm going to do is, what you need to do, if I can show you, is firstly you need to get this off like that. So that's the cable bit, and then what you do is just unclip it from the back like that. So that is where you plug your tread plates into. So I'll just go and get the tread plates and show you what they look like. Replacement tread plates. As I mentioned earlier on, hopefully when you're doing yours you won't have this problem, but I've had to make up my own cables because mine didn't come with it. If anybody's interested, they are M-Con cable connectors, and you can get them from places like RS Components. But basically these two bits here will plug into this, which will plug into the car. I've already made up the other end, did that yesterday when I was doing the other ones. Quite simple really, not a hard job. The only thing that I found out, which I didn't realise, is that these have little tabs in the middle of them. Luckily this one that I got is perfect for lining up that one, but it is different to this grey one that goes into the car. You just need to buy a different specification that's got the tab in the middle as opposed to being offset to one side as it is in there. Other than that, that was my little problem yesterday, but that's all sorted now, so that should be relatively easy to do. I'm going to go and assemble those in the moment. The tread plate on the other side looks very similar to what I've taken off, apart from obviously this Jaguar bit in the middle is the bit that illuminates, and that's the plastic bit that replaces the other plastic bit. Those bits go back in really easy, but the next step is effectively to test that this works, which I won't need to show you because it's just quite easy. All you'll do is assemble it, plug it in at both ends, and plug it into the car. Switch the car on, make sure it lights up, and then you unplug it all. And what we're going to do is, the next bit I'll come back to you is, once I have connected the cable in there, fed it through the hole in the bottom and brought it out here, I'll come back to you and show you what I've done. It's quite easy to do. You just drop the cable in, bit of cable down in here to hook it out, and that's it, job done. It's as easy as that. All the agony of getting this off is purely to be able to do that. Everything else is you could have done without taking the sill off. So anyway, back shortly. Right, well, I think that's me about done. So connected in at the front, cable, as you can see, the purple and yellow one runs grommet on the hole inside into the car, and then out of the top, bit of tape to hold it down while I put everything back together. And literally that is it. Everything now is pretty much, as they used to say in the Haynes manual, the reverse of disassembly. So it's just a matter of putting it all back together again. I hope that was of some help for anybody that may also be thinking about doing the same thing. I have done it much quicker second time around. It's probably taken me just over probably about 90 minutes, or will do by the time I've finished. It's pretty easy to get things bolted back together, so much easier second time round than it was first time, but I say quite a few learnings from the first time round. So hope this helps. I'll do one more clip just once it's all finished and back together. Alright, bye. So there we go, all back together, looking just as it did before I started an hour and a half ago. The only thing left to do now is connect this up to the new tread plate, and in order to attach it on, all you do is take off these bits off the back, which reveals the double side sticky. So I'm going to do that, stick the plate on, and I'm done. Much quicker. Right, not so bad this time round, but at least that's an insight into what you need to do to fit one of these things. Cheers, thanks a lot, bye.